Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Kotlin's Coroutine flows and Android app development. Hi again. My name is Sue. Currently, I learn to Lomotif company based in Singapore as a senior Android developer. In case you don't know Lomotif company, so we do social video remixing app with over 150 million downloads and consistently appears in the top charts of the App Store's photo and video category in Brazil's and the US, respectively. Okay, in this talk, I will talk about where the common predicate for flows and Android app development, and you will learn about Kotlin flows, where to use, and how flow help to write reliable applications. I present using a simple application which you can reference for the real-world large application. The symbol will dive straight in and have a look at the basics, getting from API calls, local storage to our UI, only using the Kotlin flows with the LiveData and ViewModel and the repository pattern. After this talk, you will see how flows enable writing safe and reliable and how it can strengthen your app development. Okay, let's jump in the part one. So what are the common use cases? There are the most practical common use case, making a request to network and accessing the internet storage. For those kind of long-running operation, we use RAjava and Kotlin Coroutine floats nowadays. So why floats? Why not RAjava? So RAjava is very powerful too. But they have many features like observables, single labels, flow label, completable, and maybe operators. So we just stick for learning curve. And why flow? The reason is that you cannot use JVM specific libraries like RAjava in your Kotlin multi-platform projects. So Flow it's a answer. Flow it's a part of the Kotlin language. So it's ideally to use in Kotlin multi-platform projects. And also, Kotlin has fewer operators and they are much simpler than the RAjava has. A single operator can handle both synchronous and asynchronous logic since the blocks of the code that operators can accept can be suspended. So let's dig more about the Kotlin flows. Kotlin Flow is a new string processing API developed by JetBrains. It's an implementation of the React streaming specification. An initiated goal is to provide a standard for the asynchronous string processing. So what is exactly Flow? Flow is interoperable with other React streams and Coroutine. Since it's built on top of the Coroutine, it provides all the pixel stretcher, concurrency, and cancellation. And the main goal of Coroutine is to simplify asynchronous work by getting rid of callbacks. Coroutine saves us from callback hell by giving us the possibility to render asynchronous codes. Okay. For basic, let's study basics. There are flow builders and flow operators. We use flow builder to create a new flow and use operators to transform the flow. This is the sample of how flow builder code look like. We use flow to create a flow from a suspendable lambda block. Inside the block, declare the names white, black, pink, etc. Assigning it to the names variable. And after that, I used a for loop to go through the list of the names, purpose which will emit each name after a small delay. And after that, I use emit to send the value to consumers. And but below there are the other way of implementation for the flow builders. So it's kind of easy flow declaration. You can use flow to create a flow from a fixed set of values, or you can use flow to convert various collections and sequence. Okay, flow operator. There are two operators in flow, intermediate and the terminal. In intermediate, map and filter. So map transform the value. In this example, maps transform from name string variable to the integer. And then you can use filter to select the specific value that meets a condition. Right now, the condition will be select below the 5. After the flow will emit a value once at a time. The operation execute only when you invoke a terminal operator on the final string. This is how maps and filter work. You can see clearly the first time I assign the string value. After that, I use a map to transform integer. After that, I filter below the 5. Okay, terminal operator. So terminal operator is just collect function. Collect is a suspend function. It can only be called from a coroutine. The reason why we wrap the code with the running block. As you start collecting the value, you get one at a time, and you don't block while waiting for a new value. So we knew the basic now. So it's how like the collect operator works. So we knew about the basis flow builder and the operators. So it's time to make our hands dirty. Our present using this sample, it's already architect. It's architect sample movie display that will help you. That would like dive straight in how I implement flows for getting API call and the local storage, and then I used LiveData for the UI as an observable, and you can check it out the project link here for more detail. Here is a sample project. You can go there and check it out there. Okay. This is the sample app architecture. This sample follows the Google recommended architecture guideline, and which help you to reduce your boilerplate code, reusable and testable. Basically, in here, LiveData will help you to communicate between the UI and then the ViewModel. And the flow will do the rest of the repository and the data source. Let's get started with the data layer. The data layer is data source. So in here, and based on the architecture, we have like 4 layers. The below one data source, we name it data layer, and the repository layer, which is usually we store the business logic, and the view model we call like presentations layer, which is usually hold the data for the UI layer. Okay, let's get started again. The data layer. Data layer is responsible for providing data, usually by reading data from a database or fetching the network. In this example, I use retrofit for consuming the REST API, and we don't need to add any additional dependency because the retrofit supports suspend functions, coroutine suspend functions since the retrofit version 2.6.0. So we just need to add suspend function in front of the API call here to return the desired object. It's same for the Roam database as well. Coroutine supports in Roam for when you're reading and writing Roam version 2.1.0. So you can directly use Flow instead of the suspend, because Roam 2.2 are now have supports for observable reads with the Flow, enable to get notified or changes in your database. So this is like showing for the data source layer. So we finish. This is how we finish data source part with the Coroutine suspend function. So easy, right? So let's move on the repository step. Usually we hold, as I said, usually we hold business logic in the repository layer. In this example, let's say the get movie list is our business logic. So we want a movie list. It can be from the local storage or network base, based on our needed. Basically, for the first step, basically we would like to send the loading to appear in the for the UI. We are like calling the right now the data is consuming, showing the loading, something like that, and then to update the UI. And then second step, call the data from the local storage. Look, if the data is exit in local storage, we will show the local data first, while we downloading the new data. And the second one, we call the API. Once we receive the value, we store in the database first. After that, we will submit the new data from the database local storage. Okay, this all handled through the flow. And for the ViewModel, there could be a couple of options to handle flows in ViewModel. Right now, we have repository, which returns all data through flow. So how do we handle the data? Handle the data, and then how to sync the data to our UI? In this example, I use flow as LiveData extension function to convert from flow to LiveData. This is a very convenient, since it will share a single underlying subscription to the flow and will manage the subscription based on the observer lifecycle. And for the live data, also keep the most recent value for late coming observer and the subscription added across the configuration changes. So this is how I retrieve data through repository all the way to live data, which will observe in the UI. And here I would like to mention about the live data. There are two live data type, mutable live data and the live data. I just use live data because I don't want to modify outside of the ViewModel classes, and I only want ViewModel to modify push a value to live data to retrieve the data through the repository. Finally, this is how we retrieve the data through the live data from ViewModel for the UI. So this code is in the UI part. So I show all the way from the data source to the UI using the flow and live data. Yay. So you can keep learning on the official websites. As a summary, you learned about the Kotlin flows, where to use, and then getting the desired data from the network API and calls local storage using the Kotlin flow, and which is really easy to implement. And then you learned about the application architecture with the 4-layer. Now you can strengthen your app development with the flows. So any question?
I think a very common question you probably get a lot about debugging. So yeah, how does someone add logs in Flow to debug properly, and what are some best practices?
Okay, so in Flow, it's really easy to debug. You can point out in here. I think I should show with the Android Studio. Fortunately, I cannot show, so I will show this sample. So beside the you can point out and you can see like how it can retain. So it's so easy. And the rest of the like things just finish with the simple sequence step, which is like, I want to send loading, just emit, it's done. So if you want like the emit loading event is probably sent or no, you can point out here and just check it out. Especially for me, yeah. I usually trying to check for the API response. So for me, it's like I check the variable response. So I point out here and trying to wait. Once I receive the result, the Android Studio will help you show the which API response you got. So it's like so easy. You can do you can turn a lot of debugging in here.